Well, there are a number of safeguards already regarding the issue of the backstop, but what the Prime Minister has been clear is that that remains an issue of concern to a number of MPs, the idea that we might in some way be trapped within the backstop. And that's not the intention of either the EU, who have always seen it as a temporary measure, and indeed EU law says that Article 50 must be temporary. The Prime Minister has been seeking legal and political assurances to clarify what both sides agree, which is this should be something that we avoid in the first place, but if we did end up in the backstop, would be temporary. And that's been the position of both sides, but the Prime Minister has been discussing with European leaders how we can give further force to that. Well, the Prime Minister has been very clear that we are leaving the EU on the 29th of March 2019. We had the biggest vote in our democratic history, and we're committed to honouring that. And there's also some real practical issues around those who say we should extend Article 50, because firstly, it's not our unilateral decision. It would require the consent of all 27 member states. But also, if it was to extend with a view to a second referendum, we wouldn't be able to pass the legislation for that referendum, what the question would be, what the spending limits would be, before the European parliamentary elections at the end of May. And I think it would be a travesty to be saying to people 3 years after they voted to leave the EU that they should be electing members of parliament in order to serve within the EU Parliament. But I think the amendment to the finance bill is illogical because many MPs, a clear majority of the House, voted to trigger Article 50. They also voted to give the public their say in the referendum. And the consequence of Article 50 is there is a 2-year period at the end of which we either leave with a deal, and the European leaders have been clear that the only deal on the table is that, after 2 years of negotiation, negotiated by the Prime Minister, or it is no deal. And so for members of Parliament, the majority of whom voted to trigger Article 50, have to accept that the consequence of their own vote is we either leave with the only deal available or with no deal.